So I want to talk to you today about a really important environmental issue that we all deal with on a daily basis. We've all been dealing with it already today, probably. That, of course, is skiing. That can't be right. Waste. We all deal with waste on a daily basis. We put it in a bin like this, and it goes away somewhere. If you're lucky, like me, your local landfill turned into a ski hill where you learned to ski and broke your arm twice on that ski hill somehow. But for 2 billion people worldwide, this is the reality they deal with in terms of waste. They don't have waste collection services. There is no away. You have to burn waste or discard it into your local environment because there simply are no other options. Or consider the 20 million people worldwide who make a living as waste pickers. Can you imagine how much of a desperate situation you must be in for this to be a reality, this to be the last option you have, is to sift through other people's waste for what little value you can find in it? And it's only getting worse. Plastic waste is set to nearly triple by 2060, and recycling rates are staggering. They're not increasing at the same rate that we're producing more plastics. We're mopping up the floor while the tap is still running. But waste isn't just plastics. Actually, in most of the world, more than 50% of the waste is coming from organic materials. And food waste in the US alone is contributing to methane emissions that are equaling 50 million cars being put on the road. In fact, methane emissions account for 50% of the global heating we've experienced already to date. I don't like this graph. I was trying to find a better one. But what I want to show with this graph is that actually the economics aren't working either, because it's cheaper to buy brand new plastics from virgin materials, from fossil fuels, than it is to buy recycled plastics. So even though there's tons of material out there that we could use, the economics aren't in our favor. And people are losing trust in the system as well. You might resonate with some of these headlines you might have seen, that recycling doesn't work, it's broken. And look at this, hilarious attempt at trying to sort recycling and litter. No wonder people don't trust the system. So this is how I feel on some days. Probably all of you as well. But actually, we're in a really pivotal moment in time where we have this unique blend of concern from the public, companies that want to take action, and government that are coming together as well. In fact, over 150 countries right now are negotiating a legally binding global plastic treaty. This is something nobody thought was possible. I was at the last 3 of the 4 international negotiation sessions, and this is something that we should all have hope in that there actually is a treaty that can come together to end plastic pollution for good. So I want to share 3 insights that we've gathered at Delterra. We're a nonprofit organization working to put practical circular economy solutions in global south countries. And a big part of that is changing behavior at the citizen and household and business level to be able to separate materials and find new markets for them. So here are some things that we've learned over the years about what's been effective on behavior change. Insight number 1, can actually be more cost-effective using behavior change to separate recycling than relying on technology. So here's, based on the research we've done and the money we spent in different places, we found it's up to 80% cheaper to do behavioral interventions than to rely on mechanical recycling. And it can pay back in less than 5 years just from the sale of recycled materials alone for those behavior interventions. And if you add in things like reduced landfill costs and plastic credits and carbon credits, that can cut that time in half. So almost 2 years payback period, which is pretty good. Another insight, behavior change in isolation can not only be useless, can be worse than doing nothing. We really try to avoid being individually correct, but collectively wrong. So you can put in place a solution that might work for for one particular circumstance in that particular pilot, but actually doesn't support an entire system change, which is what we're working towards. We want to change the entire system of a linear economy to a circular one. So a lot of the companies and governments default to something they think they know well. Let's build something, right? Infrastructure, that's got to be the solution. It sounds easy. Let's just put in a new recycling plant. That's probably the best way to go. But what if people aren't separating waste? And this is what comes into that shiny new recycling plant. No matter what those salespeople told you, this recycling plant can't deal with this in an economically financial way that's going to return a profit and that's not going to mess up that machine. We see so many white elephant projects in global south countries where they've been sold some promise and it actually can't deal with the situation that they're faced with. So you have to couple supply and demand. This is our big belief in what we do. You actually have to have separated materials at the household and business level on the supply side, and then you need to have a demand for those materials. And we've seen, for example, that there could be a lot of trust lost within the community if they don't believe that there's actually a demand for those materials. This is one example of something we did in Argentina, where to build that trust in the recycling system with people, they wanted to know that the materials were being collected separately and going to be handled properly. And if the truck looked the same every time it came by to collect compostables or recyclables or garbage, the citizens thought, well, you're not doing anything, you're just putting them all in one place, so why should I bother recycling? So rather than buying a whole bunch of different trucks, we just bought a magnet and we put it on the same truck. And so we've got our recyclables giant magnet and our compostables giant magnet, and there you go, you have one truck but different magnets, and that helped build up the trust in the system that people had. So you have to have the whole system work together is the insight we have for number 2. And the third one has been talked about a lot already, but human-centered design. And for us, rapid testing and iteration are really important. Here are some design fails. If you ever want to laugh, just Google design fails, and there's lots of hilarious ones out there. But hey, we know there's going to be failures. We know we're not going to nail it on the first attempt. And that's why we do this test, iterate, scale. So testing and iterating, let's try a bunch of different options and see what works. And so we take this sort of divergent, convergent approach where let's try a bunch of different things, let's experiment, and then we'll be able to refine and figure out what the scalable solution is at the end of that. So whenever we work with a city, before we roll out a program across an entire city, we pilot with a neighborhood first as our laboratory. So for example, in Olavarria in Argentina, we worked with a neighborhood of about 2,000 households, and we piloted 5 different interventions. And we looked at, okay, what kind of participation do we get with a combination of different interventions? So for example, we found out that putting a collected bin at the end of the street where everybody would bring their materials to separate didn't work at all. They hated it. Nobody brought anything there. Okay, so we need to do curbside collection. We need to go door to door. We need to do combined mass media with face-to-face, a magnet for people on their fridge, help people identify which dates. So in the end, we kept experimenting, and then pilot number 5, we came up with the one that had the best intervention. We combined number 1 was pretty good and some other tweaks, and so number 5 was what we scaled across the whole city. So rapid intervention, rapid iteration and testing has proved really well for us. So those 3 interventions, we feel like those 3 insights, you can combine those, and we can drastically increase the recovery of materials that otherwise would have been going to landfill, being burned, or being discarded into the environment, so that we can get back to breaking our arms on the ski hill. Thank you.